Hello there, I'm Tom Wiggins.
And I'm Emily Elias, and this is Desert Island Dips, the podcast where we pit condiment against condiment and ask, if you were trapped on a desert island, which 5 dips would you want to take with you?
Are you going to do the voiceover for like the Desert Island Dips, the movie? The trailer voice?
This is my dream. This is my dream.
We need to settle on the idea for the film first. Really,
We've got I think a franchise of films that we're working on. Yeah.
So far, the island, and we can't say whether any of these are going to be the film or not. The island is home to tomato ketchup, brown sauce, English mustard, sriracha, and ajika. We've been that way for a while. I don't see it as a problem. I don't know why I keep bringing it up.
Because I think you secretly think it's a problem.
We're not here just to change things willy-nilly to entertain our listeners, though. We're here to decide on some truths. So I don't care what you say.
Okay.
And by you, I mean them.
I didn't take it as like a confrontational, I don't care what you say, the only person I'm staring at.
I don't care what one says. No, that would be me, wouldn't it?
I don't care what society
Anyone
says.
There we go. We're going to go back and, for the first time ever in Desert Island Dips history, I mean, obviously we have previously talked about condiments.
We've had allusions before to other condiments.
But we're going to go back and properly cover a condiment that we've covered before, briefly. Very briefly.
Kind of.
In the middle of another episode.
I would argue this is a subsection of a mayonnaise family. It's like a cousin, maybe?
Well, I was going to say when we essentially, I think we exposed mayonnaise as the white mouth lubricant that it is in episode 2. And you're right, during that we briefly touched on aioli. At the time, you certainly didn't think it deserved an episode of its own, and I kind of tentatively agreed, but I don't think either of us knew enough.
We had a whole sea of condiments ahead of us.
Exactly.
We hadn't had a year and a half of knowledge of deeply researching condiments in our back pocket.
Do you know when that was?
Cocky and arrogant.
Exactly. It was the 5th of November 2017.
Do you know how much has changed since then?
The world looks very, very different today. And we are now running low on condiments to discuss.
Hey, we're not running low. We're just opening ourselves up to different opportunities.
It's certainly going harder. So I went back and looked at aioli. I got a jar of it out and looked at it really close. And I thought, in there, I can see more things that we can talk about. So I've decided we're going back.
I love it.
We're going to properly give it a look. And for me, there's a definite distinction to be made that we thought at the time, but I have confirmed this now, and there is a story to be told. So I'm going to tell it.
Tom, I hand over the storytelling reins to you.
So I feel like we should do a quick mayo recap before we begin. Mainly just to clarify, it's an emulsion of oil, eggs, and vinegar, basically, that originates in France / Spain.
Yep.
It's kind of unclear which one it comes from, but there was. If you want to know that story, go back and listen to it, right?
Popularized by Mr. Hellman,
exactly, yeah.
Nearly had a seat on the Titanic, which is one of my favorite facts about mayonnaise that I like to pull out.
One of the best condiment anecdotes, I think, really. All the way back in episode 2, and it's right up there. Aioli has very similar origins. The principal difference between the two, I think, is quite clear to most people. It's garlic. Okay? So let's just focus on garlic briefly, which I think is something most people like to do. I certainly like to do it. Garlic is believed to have spread across Europe thanks to the Romans a long time ago.
Would these be Roman times?
Yes. There's a chap called Pliny the Elder who wrote a book about, not all about garlic. He wrote it's kind of an early version of an encyclopedia called Naturalis Historia, Natural History, made up of 37 books, and this is published in 77 AD. Talks extensively about garlic in this book, but largely about its medicinal qualities rather than it as a food, rather than a culinary uses.
Pliny, I love
Pliny
you.
the Elder. I'm only aware of Pliny from he's in a Lee and Herring sketch. I'm not going to get into it. He's in a Lee and Herring sketch as a crow, I believe.
Do you think he was inspired by Pliny the Elder? Or now?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, because it's he was like a history crow. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, fine. Totally.
I highly recommend looking up Histor and Pliny, which were characters on the Lee and Herring show in the 90s. Anyway, just before Pliny the Elder wrote this book, this series of books, he spent some time in Tarragona, which is a city in Spain. At the time, it was the capital of Hispania, which was the name for the Roman-controlled parts of Spain. And he had like an official role as part of the Roman Empire in Tarragona. The reason I bring this up is because the word aioli basically means it's like a compound of the words for garlic and olive oil in a language that's kind of still used, but not greatly in Provence in France. It's like a medieval dialect, Provençal. This was like part of Provence still exists in France now, but it was part of a large area that was comprised of like a lot of France, a little bit of Spain, a little bit of Italy, and it was called Occitania.
It sounds magical. It sounds like there's a kingdom, there's a unicorn.
Well, it's like medieval times. So
they got like some banging castles and stuff.
Probably.
Some awesome peasants.
Knights on horses.
About. Yeah.
They were looking for stuff to kill on horseback, so it's kind of fairy tale.
Now is the time to get your bloodlust on horseback.
The part of Spain that it included is the Aran Valley, which sounds like it's in Wales, but is actually in Spain, specifically Catalonia. Now, Tarragona, where Pliny was hanging out, is also in Catalonia. Do you know what they call garlic and olive oil in Catalan?
I'm going to go with Aioli, but I'm going to probably be wrong.
Spelt slightly differently to the aioli that we are aware what we use. So it's kind of alioli. I'm not sure if the pronunciation is different, but it's like...
Oh, okay.
It's essentially the same, right?
Yeah.
The Catalan dialect, which that comes from, is the closest current, like modern linguistic relative to Occitan, which is the language they spoke in that whole area back in the day.
That's so cool.
So, I mean, I'm not I actually did study linguistics, so yes, I am a linguist. But I'm not a linguistic historian, as it were. But I feel like...
You studied linguistics?
Yeah, and for like a year at
Really?
university, I think, yeah. That's where the Botox Cowboys came from, my band. We were doing something in a linguistics seminar.
Several things. Botox Cowboys, what?
The band that I'm in.
You're in a band?
Yeah, I have been since university.
What? How did I not know about this?
We came up with the name in a linguistics linguistics seminar because we were reading some newspapers for some reason, looking at the language, I would imagine. And something from the Daily Mail was the headline was about Botox Cowboys, and me and Danny Wong, who is the other member of the band, were like, "That is the best band name ever." And there we are. That's what we're called. That's who we are.
What
the
do you
Botox
play?
Cowboys. Whatever you want me to play.
Oh, you don't play anything?
Whatever needs playing, I can play.
Do you have a song?
We've got albums, mate.
How have I never encountered any of this?
Dead Tennis, Grime Watch UK. Loads of albums.
I feel like
the problem is, actually,
I've been a terrible friend to you because I did not know this.
Well, the problem is most of the stuff that was available was on MySpace, and MySpace got deleted the other day, didn't it?
Yeah.
Oh,
so is all your stuff gone then?
It might be. I'll have to see what I've got at home.
Are you still a band?
Yeah,
if
of
your
course.
music doesn't exist on MySpace.
Even more so, I would say. Yeah.
Whoa. What was like the biggest performance you did?
We've never performed live, I don't think.
Wait, what?
We've never performed live.
Is this like
Not all bands perform live.
Is this like to build your illusion, to build your mystique?
Just don't feel the need, you know.
Botox Cowboys.
The music speaks for itself.
Okay.
Do you want to hear a little weird random fact about what I think is weird anyway?
Sorry, are we going back to
the language again?
Can I just also say you studied linguistics?
Yeah.
Amazing. I did not realize this about you.
Studied loads of things, mate.
I never said you didn't.
I mean, we can't just go through all of them now. It's at ages. It's still classed as an official language in Spain, Occitan, but not as an official one. It's recognised in France and Italy, but it's not an officially recognised language.
Hey, you got an official language status. That's huge, you know? Is it a dying language, or is it still...
No, I think it's still spoken in those areas. this is important because, as I was saying, the words for aioli are very similar in those languages, so across that area, which I think ties it specifically to what I'm making a sort of bean shape with
It was
my
almost
hands.
like a sausage shape,
Sort of a bent sausage,
like a kidney bean.
which is for the
That's the band of
southern part of Spain, a little bit of Italy, and then the very small part of northern Spain.
Were you also studying geography when you were studying linguistics?
No, I don't like geography. It's just colouring in, isn't it?
I don't know. I never studied it.
Yeah.
I did real things, hard things. I had to
I'm
watch.
sure geography is hard.
I had to watch that birthing video in biology like 4 times. That is trying.
Is it like the one in Body Song, the film that Johnny Greenwood did the soundtrack for?
It
Because
is.
that is horrific.
It is a lady garden that has not been tended in a while. Very 70s. Nothing wrong with it. That's just what I was exposed to. And a human just shooting out of it,
Whoa.
out of nowhere.
Whoa. You learn new things all the time on this podcast. That's where babies come from.
Yeah. So you're busy, coloring in. And
So the reason I bring this up and the reason why we're talking about it is because there are essentially 2 recognised types of aioli, right? It's difficult to work out whether they evolved sort of independently of each other or if one became the other one as time went on, if you see what I mean. One of them has stayed sort of the same for the whole time, it would seem, the Catalan version, because that just includes egg. Sorry, the Catalan version just includes the garlic and oil and some salt. There's no egg involved in that at all. But the French one, the one from Provence, the Provençal one, has the egg added. The thing about this, right, is that, like as I said, mayo is an emulsion. This is an emulsion, which means the 2 things don't naturally combine, right? Yep. The lack of the egg in the Catalan one makes it more fragile as an emulsion, so it separates more easily, which basically makes it more difficult to make. And traditionally, you're supposed to use a pestle and mortar just to really go for it and mash it up. And so it's labour intensive, basically, very, very hard.
Oh, that would be like churning butter almost. Like it would be hard work.
So that to me suggests that the reason why we've ended up with the Provençal version as the kind of dominant aioli in Europe and the UK, probably the rest of the world, because it's just easier to make. It's more stable. It's basically through laziness, that we'll have that one because it's easier to do.
And if we can say anything about human history, it is an evolution of laziness.
Yeah. It is. There's a couple of places I saw it suggested that the adding the egg to it was essentially done as a way to make it easier to make and to make it last, to be more stable, so it would last longer, and therefore it's newer, slightly newer than the Catalan version. So that is tentatively treated as the original, and then the one with the egg added comes later on, and that's gone on to be the dominant aioli. In France, it's popularly eaten with white fish, usually cod.
Fair.
And a load of seasonal veg and stuff. They have this traditional family meal called le rond aioli, where that's one of the things they eat. Also, that is something very similar to that is eaten traditionally on Christmas Eve in that part of France, called le gros souper, where they eat basically the same thing. And then they go out.
Yeah.
And they come back.
Yeah.
So they go out to midnight mass, then they come back, and then they have 13 desserts.
What? That is a religion I can get behind.
They're supposed to symbolise Jesus and the apostles, the 13 different desserts.
I feel
good, isn't it?
What? I feel very let down by the form of Christianity that I've been come into contact with, because nowhere is there mention of a dessert menu.
No, it's a shame. I've not really read the Bible fully, but I don't remember there being a cooking, a recipe section.
No, well, I think there is, but it's mainly like, fishes, loaves.
One turned into the other.
Water into wine.
Yeah, it's not really recipes, that is it? It's more sort of miracles. The earliest mention of garlic in a French cookbook is 1306. So we're going back quite a long time for this. You know, Pliny obviously didn't invent aioli himself, but
he just documented. It evolved from being a medicinal, like root vegetable towards being like a yummy, tasty treat.
It's suggested that it was probably popular before this, or it would certainly have been eaten before this, but it was possibly considered as like a peasant food back then, and the people that were writing and writing the recipes and making the books were more upper class than this, and they were like, well, I'm not putting like working class garlic recipes into our cookbooks. So it could have certainly been around before that. It's just that it wasn't sort of accepted as a generally eaten food until later on. There's a lovely little story in here, going back to Spain briefly, 1330. There was a guy called Alfonso, King of Castile. He made it a law that said if you a knight who had eaten garlic or onion would not be allowed to go to court or communicate with other knights for at least a month.
What?
Because he was a smelly garlicky man.
I mean,
Which,
okay.
I mean, it doesn't take a month to wear off, though, does
he
it?
took a very bold stand on a very small problem.
But I just, I thought that was funny.
That's
a month.
it.
Get out. You've had garlic and or onion. We can't have you around here. I know their sort of oral hygiene wasn't up to the same standards, but a month?
A month seems very
Excessive,
extreme. Oy.
But obviously it grows in popularity. There are mentions of it later on. So I think there's an American who's visiting Provence in 1850. He saw still lower classes, but he saw them. They would just eat bread with oil and garlic,
Delicious,
rubbed into it, and just eat that for lunch. I was like, oh, no, I could happily eat that for lunch as well, I think.
When do we get back into the Aioli territory?
Well, it's all linked, isn't it? The spread through from Provence and that area up through France and into Britain and then on to America. It's quite late, actually. Early part of the 20th century when tourists start to visit the Mediterranean coast of France, particularly Nice, which is a city that was founded by the Romans. So we've got the Pliny Roman link there again. Did you know the main promenade in Nice is called Promenade des Anglais?
Yeah, I did.
I did not know that. It appears that the first English language recipe for aioli turns up in a translation in 1907.
Wow, that is really late.
Auguste Escoffier's Le Guide Culinaire.
I am surprised by how late
It's
that
quite late,
is.
isn't it? Which, I mean, that's sort of because it feels like quite a new condiment to me.
Aioli?
Yeah.
I mean,
In terms of our exposure to it.
okay, but then here's a question for you, because I don't know whether it has been more of like a bougie condiment than like a working class condiment. Like,
It's weird, isn't it? It's almost switched.
because I don't like kids today. They're eating avocados, they're eating guacamole, like it's no big deal.
Yeah.
But I definitely didn't have that in my
No.
food realm.
Just the avocado baby.
Until much later in like as a small child, my mom would never have been like, here Emily, eat some avocado.
No.
So I just don't know if it has been around, but I just haven't been in those eating circles. Like I've been, eating my nugs and having a lovely time.
I think it's fairly recent. I think it's a gastropub thing, isn't it?
Yes. Well, is it?
I think so.
So my first job, well, no, not my first job. The collection of Emily Elias employment is loose at best. But one of my first jobs, I was a waitress in a chain like circumstance. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like a good restaurant. It was like it was an upscale family sort of chain, but it was just like
Sort of like a Pizza Express.
kind
That
of
level?
that sort of level where you'd still have like kids mess themselves on the booth seats and it would be your problem.
Nice.
But you were not paid enough to deal with it.
No one's paid enough to deal with it.
And like a part of the menu was
When is this? Sorry, what year are we talking?
2001, 2002
Okay. And it was where?
in Calgary, Alberta.
Okay. I think these are important details.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, they would offer sweet potato fries with a garlic aioli. And I remember taking orders, people would be very mystified by what is a garlic aioli.
Yeah.
And then I'd have to explain, it's like a garlic mayonnaise. And to be
Weird,
fair,
you don't need the word garlic in there, do you?
No, but
when you get into an expert level like us.
But this was like a Canadian-wide chain that had determined through their like market research that it needed to be labeled as garlic aioli, and that this was the like training book way of describing it to a
I think that's
customer.
fair.
But again, I feel like that's post 2000s. That's quite late.
I think that's earlier than here.
Do you think?
Yeah. I mean, the fact that you were getting sweet potato fries in 2001, I don't think you were getting those here in 2001.
Really?
Yeah. I think we were still coming to terms with like thick chips at that point. Like, we'd gone from very thin chips, which was, I think, probably seen as quite a big deal. We went from normal chips to very thin chips, and then I think we went to big fat chips. I don't really know where we are now. I think we're on a chip sort of, what kind of chips do you want?
You go to a pub now, and they'll offer you 3 different kinds of cut of chips, and it's up to you to decide.
Triple fried or whatever it is.
I get very confused.
Yeah, I feel like the trend towards thick chips is going to get to an extreme point soon, and you're just going to get one potato,
like a baked potato,
deep fried.
Yeah.
And that'll be it.
Wedges, that's another one.
Wedges aren't chips, though, are they?
But
different.
You get like, I had sweet potato wedges the other day, and it was basically like somebody had cut a giant sweet potato into a quarter, and I was like, what the heck is this?
What the heck? You can say heck. That's okay.
I don't know.
No, I think aioli is a fairly recent development in this country to go with chips or we quite often have it with fish.
Can you remember your first encounter with aioli?
No.
Like, would it ballpark? Would it have been 10 years ago?
Probably it's about 10 years ago.
So
ish.
So 2009-ish?
Something like that. Maybe a little bit before. Yeah.
So you're a decade after Canada. The sweeping food trend.
I think thought you were going to call me a dick then.
I would never do that to you.
I don't think we had it when I was at university. I think it came later. Although I did go to university in the north of England, where they, as we have seen from recent maps, they much prefer gravy with their chips.
They know what they like.
Definitely not aioli. Probably still don't know what aioli is either. And that's not. I'm not to disparage the people of the north of England. But I mean, this connection with just, as we shall call it, garlic mayo. That's what I think a lot of people now just think aioli is, and that's what it's used. That's the term that is used probably quite a lot of the time. Well, that's what people just think. Well, that's just garlic mayo, isn't it? Which is fair enough. Things change, and who are we to stop this happening? Things evolve. But the reason why I felt that it was necessary to do an episode on aioli was that if we didn't, we'd be kind of denying it its history.
Now,
and if anyone should not be doing that, it's this podcast.
Now, with garlic aioli, I'm like, I'm vertigoing back 20 years. Oh, I'm old. Oh my gosh, that was 20 years ago. I'm old.
Yeah, well, not quite, but yeah, pretty much.
Oh, what has happened to me? Grown. The point I was trying to make before I started to face my own mortality was, I totally
You've forgotten.
I totally lost it.
Because you're so old, you've just got no memory anymore.
Was that 20 years ago?
Wow, this is a live breakdown. Do you want me to bring something up that I think we need to talk about?
I think I remember.
Okay.
So current aioli is made without an egg, correct?
No.
Okay. So it is closer to a garlic mayonnaise.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Than to the Catalan sort of recipe that is less stable and egg-free. So you would need to have like a vegan aioli. You couldn't just have like
you could have the traditional Catalan version and that would be vegan. But
right.
If you had the Provençal version, which has got the egg in it, you're out. You're out of here, vegans.
Yeah, so the Provençal version
Yeah.
is the one that we're seeing dominantly throughout like our chain life.
I believe so. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for the clarity.
Because it essentially does resemble just garlic mayonnaise. I was going to say that I was not 100% sure that Aioli adhered to all the commandments.
Okay.
Because I was when I was looking for it in Sainsbury's to make sure it did, couldn't buy it. You can get like Hellman's roasted garlic mayo, but there was nothing that was, and just you get those garlic sauces as well, but there was nothing that was explicitly labelled as Aioli.
How big is the Sainsbury's you're in?
It's quite a big one.
Okay.
But I have since gone on the internet and had a look, and you can buy jars of Aioli, so which appear to be the Provençal version. So it does adhere to all the rules. Because I was like, well, if you can't buy it in the shop, then this is a waste of time. But you can, so it's okay. It's just not very common, which is strange, isn't it? You get it in so many pubs. You'd think that someone would go, oh, you know what we should probably do here? We should probably sell this stuff in a jar or in a squeezy tube. Because people are like, hey, I can be fancy and have my own gastro house.
I argue that Aioli suffers from a upsell sort of pub.
Probably.
It's a pub upsell as opposed to it being sort of like a standard like in the caddy of condiments that you would get at a pub.
Is it not just trying to make their menu sound a bit posher?
Yeah, I think that too. Try to make like, I don't know if they're actually serving you real aioli. This could be like, in vinegar, where if you go to a chip shop, you get unbrewed condiment. Are they actually selling you aioli, or are they selling you a garlic
Just
mayonnaise
garlic mayo.
because it's,
Because it's essentially the same thing.
It's out back, it's a bit cheaper, easier to get their hands on. I don't know.
I don't think people respect its history, and therefore are quite possibly just going, all right, we've got this garlic mayo, put aioli on the menu.
But
That
if you
sounds
saw
more fancy.
If you saw it on a menu, you had the option of a garlic mayonnaise or an aioli, what would you take?
From my knowledgeable position, I would go, well, which kind of aioli is it? And then they'd go, what are you on about? And well, is it Catalan or Provençal?
And then
they'd go, get out.
And then they'd be like, I will spit in your food later.
Who is this idiot? Yeah. If I didn't know that there was a difference, I'd probably just go, oh, let's have aioli.
I think that
'Cause it sounds fancy.
nicer.
Yeah.
It sounds nicer. I think mayonnaise suffers, maybe like there's such a thing as mayonnaise fatigue, where it doesn't sound as special because we have it all the time in everything.
The problem for me is that because of our shared attitude towards mayonnaise, in that we don't dislike it, we just don't think it's particularly exciting. If you tell me that you're going to put garlic in it, I will take that every day of the week because I'm like, yeah, it makes it much better. Well done.
Agreed.
Let's have it. And that's why I think it's kind of, that's why I think aioli is important, because it means that for people like us who are like, mayonnaise, you can sort of make mayonnaise good.
I think
Let's make mayonnaise good again.
I agree with you totally. I think that the garlic factor in the aioli is what puts it over the edge to being a winning condiment. And I think that's where mayonnaise falls down for me. And I know that I'm going to get a lot of mayonnaise hate because you people love it, but have a good look in the mirror and ask yourself, if you had the option between mayonnaise
And garlic mayo.
what would you pick?
A lot of the time, aioli is kind of used to mean anything that is garlic with something else added to it as well. So they'll call it something else aioli, to indicate that it's not just straight mayonnaise.
Chipotle
It's got
aioli
flavour.
or something.
Exactly, yeah. So, I mean, basically what we're getting at here is if mayonnaise had ever been anywhere near the island, it would be getting replaced right now, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Actually, let's quickly have a look. Tomato ketchup, brown sauce, English mustard, sriracha, ajika. Do you think any of those? I would get rid of brown sauce for it.
No.
Really?
Yeah.
Come on. I get rid of mustard for it.
No.
I wouldn't get rid of sriracha, and I would not get rid of ajika because they're too delicious.
I mean, at a push, I might get rid of ajika for it, but I have no hugely strong feelings towards that. I'm not going to fight for it,
Okay.
I'm not going to strip naked and stand up in the public gallery in Parliament to try and force it through.
I hope you don't stand up in the public gallery of my life to force it through. Change our friendship dramatically, and probably not for the better.
So, well, I think that means it's not going in,
Nah.
right? Again, some more disappointment for you listeners. No changes.
We now know what's the wiggly Jenga piece. The wiggly Jenga piece is Ajika. That's
Do you reckon?
the one that you'd be willing to tap out.
Only because if it's like I need a hot sauce and I had to get rid of one of sriracha or ajika, that's the way it would go. I could cope with just sriracha, so that's why. But no, the rest are all solidly there. I'm afraid they're all nailed in.
Well, listeners, you're gonna have to wait 2 whole weeks to find out if Ajika gets subtly plucked off of the island. I know your weakness now, Tom. I must find an Ajika replacement.
My only worry is that we would disappoint an entire, not entirely recognised nation if we were to remove their condiment from our list.
I mean, I just feel the list is very Anglo, and I think that it's very vinegary. It's a very vinegar-heavy list, and I think there just needs to be
What does that say about vinegar?
But I think there just needs one of the heavily vinegarized items needs to shift, because we're losing out on a lot of flavor by concentrating on a very rigid
But we'd lose some vinegar then.
I don't want brown sauce. It tasted like throw up to me, and I relented and let you had it.
You said yes
but
to
now
it. Sorry.
It's
too late now.
I
Can't go back on it.
Throw it off the
Can't
island.
rewrite the past.
I want to rewrite the past.
Well,
take off brown sauce.
Too
put
late.
on soy sauce.
Brown sauce is brown sauce, I'm afraid. Do go and tell us what's good and bad about our lives on social media.
Yes, please.
Desert Island Dip on Twitter, Desert Island Dips on Facebook, Desert Island Dips on Instagram, and Desert Island Dips @gmail.com on email.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Until there's a new social platform that we need to use, when we will come up with a name for it.
I guarantee we will be late to the game and not very good at adapting to it.
No, but you've got to wait till they sort of get a foothold in the world before you even bother, so it's fine. Thanks very much for listening. Do come back again, and maybe things will be different.
Who knows?
I know.
Bye.